conditioners and heat pumps get delivered as two pieces. There's an indoor piece and an outdoor piece. And those pieces have to be matched, but they get delivered at different times. So sometimes the wrong piece just gets delivered. So when we look at the model numbers and we try to match them up, we realize that the wrong outdoor unit got delivered and installed. So we're often the ones who would catch that. We're just a form of quality control. Wow. So that's something that can happen. Another thing that is probably my most common failed item that needs to be retested for Energy Star homes is that Energy Star homes requires that all of your bath and kitchen fans be tested and that they be pulling the amount of air that they're supposed to pull out of your house. And it's extremely common, especially that a bath fan ends up not pulling very much air. There's just a lot of little things that can go wrong with a bath fan as it gets ducted out of the house. So you can get a bird or a squirrel or something that tries to build a nest in that duct while the house is still being framed up and things are pretty open. You can get, there's usually a little damper on the outside of the house that has these little flappers on it. And sometimes those accidentally get painted shut.
No.
So you just have to go out with like a broom or a pole and knock them back open. There's some bath fans ship with a little damper on the bath fan itself, and there's a little piece of tape on that damper for shipping, and if the person who installs it forgets to remove the tape, then it just never will open and work right. A duct can get crushed by insulation or someone, stepping on it. There's just a lot of little things that can go wrong with bath fans. So I would say probably 1 out of every 3 houses that we test for Energy Star has a bath fan that is not meeting specifications, that needs a little work, and you can't be Energy Star rated until that gets fixed. And it might seem like a small thing, but if you have a bath fan in our climate that sorry. Okay, so bath fans are another thing that can go wrong. I would say that about 1 out of 3 Energy Star homes has a bath fan that isn't moving enough air to meet specifications. And that might seem like kind of a small picky thing, but especially in our climate, there's a lot that can go wrong if your bath fans aren't working well, because humidity is a really big deal in this climate, in both the summer and the winter. So I've seen homes that have a bath fan that isn't working well. And, I've gotten called to homes that have humidity complaints. And what can happen is if you have, say, a master bath fan that isn't working well, and you're putting a lot of humidity into the house that you're not removing, is I've seen homes where they're getting condensation on the windows, and it'll be worse in the bathroom. And then it's like the further you get from the bathroom, the better it is. So that's just a source of humidity that can lead to moisture problems. So it's an important thing, even though it seems like a small thing.
Nice. So one of the big challenges all customers face is understanding the HVAC system and knowing what type of equipment and what makes the most sense in their home. Can you tell us about the services that you offer in that regard?
I can. In addition to doing energy ratings on homes, I'm actually a mechanical engineer, and I do perform load calculations, which some clients opt to do, and some clients opt to have the heating and air installer do it. It can be done either way as long as somebody does it. And one comforting thing to know is that if your house is rated Energy Star, not only does somebody have to do that load calculation, but it gets checked. So when we do the rating, they have to send us a copy, and there are even a few really basic quality assurance checks that we do on it. So there's the sizing of it, which matters, because if you oversize, especially a cooling system, then you can end up with a system that doesn't dehumidify well, and that can cause problems. In addition to the fact that you're paying more for your system than you might need to. The other thing that I can help with if it's needed is that, you know, a lot of times homeowners aren't really sure what the best combination of equipment would be for them. And there isn't, honestly, just one blanket answer. You know, I even have friends ask me, like, should I get a heat pump? Should I get a gas furnace? And I'm like, you kind of need to tell me more about your situation. So if you have a really efficient home that you're wanting to be net zero energy with, and you don't need to put it on a backup generator, and you're in a situation where you don't have natural gas available, then there are some really great system combinations that are all electric. And in a case like that, I'd say, you know, I would be heading toward just an electrify everything approach. Which is great. And I live in a house that has that. I have a geothermal system. My heating and cooling is electric, no gas, and we have a bunch of solar panels, and we're net zero energy. There are other cases where sometimes your heating and cooling loads just don't balance very well. So with any kind of heat pump, they work pretty well when the amount of heating that you need is pretty close to the amount of cooling that you need. And, you know, sometimes, typically in newer houses, that's more true than older houses. But sometimes I'll just see a house where, for whatever reason, you know, maybe it's in a really shady location. Maybe just the way the windows are. Sometimes the heating load is just a lot higher than the cooling load. And I'll say to the client, you know, I really actually think this house could use gas, like a gas backup furnace. And sometimes that's something that clients want, so, you know, we can work with it. It still is unfortunately helpful to have a gas backup furnace if you want your heating to be on a generator. So there's a bunch of variables that I'll help people talk through, so that we can figure out what the best system option is. And often what I'll tell you is I'll see an HVAC estimate, and it has a bunch of add options that can make it cost more. And sometimes I'll pick out one or two of those add options and say, I really think that for your house, this is important for you. So, you know, an example of that is some of the variable speed compressor systems. They're more efficient. So the HVAC guy will try to sell it to you as an efficiency upgrade, which is true. But there are also some other more intangible benefits that you get from them that in certain houses really matter. And to some homeowners, it might matter more than the efficiency. So if you have a house that has zoning, which is different areas of the house on their own thermostat, then if you get these variable speed systems, if only one zone needs heating or cooling at a time, you don't have to force the full airflow for the whole house through that one zone. And it ends up being a lot quieter. So if you have a bedroom suite that's relatively small compared to the rest of the house that's on the system, I might try to upsell you on that efficiency upgrade just to make your system quieter. And the other benefit that you get from systems like that is they dehumidify better. So if you have a house that, you know, maybe has a walkout basement or is relatively shaded, or there's something else about the house that tells me, like, maybe this house would benefit from a little extra dehumidification compared to other houses, then I might try to push you in the direction of that variable speed system. It's going to cost a little more, but you're going to get more performance out of it.
That's great. What about a lot of my clients are question the need for a ERV? Can you explain that and what its purpose is?
Yeah, so an ERV is an energy recovery ventilator. And every new house, and a lot of existing houses, to be honest with you, needs to have a form of fresh air. We call it whole house mechanical ventilation. And it's just a very small amount of fresh air that gets delivered into your house on a regular, usually 24/7 continuous basis. And the main purpose of this fresh air is just to dilute unavoidable contaminants that happen in your house. And a lot of those contaminants are things that are related to you. So cleaning products, personal care products, furniture is still, we've gotten the formaldehyde out of just about every type of insulation. And a lot of the wood products that builders use now are mostly formaldehyde free, or at least, well, they're added formaldehyde free. Cabinets are they're kind of the last frontier, but I'd say at least half the cabinets I see are ultra low formaldehyde. But furniture still, most homeowners don't know the formaldehyde content of every piece of furniture that they buy and that they have. So there are a lot of unavoidable contaminants that happen, and we don't have a way to know what a lot of them are. So the idea is that you just have this baseline amount of ventilation that will dilute those contaminants to keep them at a good level. So there are different ways you can do that. And if somebody's budget is ultra tight, there are less expensive ways to do that than an ERV. But the ERV is nice because it's a balanced pressure system, and it also has heat recovery. So on a cold day in the wintertime, if you're bringing in 30-degree outside air, you can recover some of the heat in the air that you're getting rid of, so that you don't have the full energy penalty of doing that. And it's a really small amount of air, actually. Sometimes I get people who ask me, like, why did we go to all this effort to seal my house up to then ventilate it? And the answer to that is, this is a really small amount of air that we're bringing in continuously. If we let your house just be leaky, the problem with that is a leaky house brings in tons of air when it's super cold and super hot, and almost no air when it's pretty mild. So we're getting way more than we need and way more than we want to pay for when it's most expensive to do that. And then we're getting almost nothing at other times of the year. The other problem with just letting your house leak is, if we do that, a lot of those homes are bringing in that leaky air from places that are really not the best indoor air quality. So the attached garage, we don't want that air. Possibly the attic, possibly the basement or the crawl space. So there are places where we don't want to get that air from. So by sealing the house up, putting in an ERV, we can bring in a small amount of air to keep our indoor air quality in what's hopefully a healthy range. And we can also bring that air from a place that we decide. So we don't put that right next to where you park your car, that we know will be clean. And then we actually recover some of the energy, so that the energy impact of doing that is even smaller.
Nice. So one last question from me. Oftentimes my clients will say, what are the tax rebates or the incentives that are out there to pursue some of the certifications that are in existence, and how can you help with that?
Okay, so, and this might be something that you want to edit, but in terms of the rebates, they do tend to change. So anything that I say is gonna be dated relatively soon. My best advice is to go to the Greenbuilt Alliance's website. It's greenbuilt.org, and they actually have a pretty comprehensive rebates and incentives area that you can look at. In terms of the rebates and incentives that are out there, Duke Energy has a very good program for builders that rewards you for doing the HERS rating and for performing at least about 20% better than a typical code built home. So that can often pay for my work, but it is a builder rebate. And that's available in the Duke Energy Progress territory, which is roughly Buncombe County, and places to the east and north. Areas to the south, like Henderson County and south, are Duke Energy Carolinas, and we hope to get that program there someday, but we don't have it yet. There's also different cities and towns have permit fee rebates. So the city of Asheville has a $500 permit fee rebate for doing green build home certification. I think it's a $100 permit fee rebate for Energy Star, and those are not stackable. It's either or. So obviously Greenbuilt is the one with the better payback. The city of Black Mountain, or the town of Black Mountain, it's a $500 permit fee rebate for Greenbuilt. You have to score at least silver for that one, which is not honestly that hard to do. Let's see. There is a federal tax rebate, and this one gets a little bit complicated, so you have to talk to your accountant. I've had builders who say the builder can take it, and I've had builders who say the homeowner has to take it. It's basically how it's decided based on how you have financial responsibility for the house, which is way outside my wheelhouse. But for the federal one, it's a pretty high bar. You have to use half the heating and cooling energy of a code build home. So I would say only about a third of our Energy Star homes actually meet that high a level of efficiency. But that one is $2,000. It's existed since 2005, but the feds have a tendency to let that one expire at the end of the year and then let us live in limbo for a year until they extend it. I'm kind of hoping that maybe we'll get an extension of it for like 5 years, which would let people better plan around it. But sometimes when they extend it, they make it harder to get to. So that one is like a work with me and see if we're headed in that direction situation. Those are the major ones that exist right now. It's also worth mentioning that there's a 26% tax credit for solar, and that applies to like solar electric, solar hot water, which has become less common because it has more moving parts. And it also applies to geothermal. So if you have clients who are looking at a geothermal system, it gets the same federal tax credit that solar does. And that kind of helps with the punch of geothermal being a little more expensive up front. So that one still exists, and Duke has got a really great rebate program for solar also. It's just not, those ones don't go through us. The Duke one, I think you have to apply for yourself. And you basically have to, there's twice a year when you can do it, and you just have to be at your computer with everything ready to go at that time.
Yeah, I think that number of rebates they give is limited, but it is an attractive rebate. Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking at installing some more panels on my house, and they told me that they tend to go in like the first 10 minutes. So they tell you what to do. You just have to be ready and then be at your computer that day.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But people are getting them, and it's a very good rebate.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Okay, so we talked about a lot of stuff: the HERS rating, the certifications, the energy model, why the HERS rating is important, and your inspection process, HVACs, ERVs. Can you think of something that we missed?
You know, I feel like we've really covered it.
You know, one thing that as we do more and more, Amy, it just becomes more obvious to me that there's no reason why we should not be partnering with you in every opportunity. The savings that we can give the homeowner on the back end pays for your services over and over again. Not to mention the opportunities for the rebates and the incentives.
Yeah, it should. And I mean, that federal one's just, it falls out at the end. It's just, I feel bad because it's been hard to plan for that one because they keep letting it expire.